January 28, 2016, Rihanna released ANTI. The album was strange, dark, different from anything she'd done before. Critics were confused. Fans were divided. But what nobody knew was that ANTI wasn't just an album. It was a declaration, a breaking point, and the beginning of the longest, most calculated silence in modern pop music history. The backup dancer who worked Rihanna's final tour before the disappearance witnessed something during those shows. Something that made her realize the silence wasn't about taking a break. It was about completing something. A 6-year ritual that required total withdrawal from music. And when Rihanna finally returned in 2023, she wasn't the same person who left. This is the story of what happened during those silent years, and why the dancer believes Rihanna's absence was never voluntary. It was necessary, contractual, but not with a record label. With something far older, the dancer joined Rihanna's team in 2015 during the final stages of the ANTI World Tour preparations. She'd worked with other major artists before, knew the drill, rehearsals, choreography, performance. But Rihanna's energy was different from the start. Not in a diva way, in a haunted way, like someone carrying an enormous weight. The dancer remembers the first full company rehearsal. Rihanna walked in, looked at the assembled dancers and band, and said something that stuck with everyone in that room. "This is the last time. After this tour, I'm done. And I mean done." People laughed nervously, assumed she was being dramatic. Artists always threatened retirement. But Rihanna's face was stone. She wasn't joking. ANTI, the album, was unlike anything Rihanna had released. Gone was the club-ready pop, the radio hits, the polished productions. Instead, ANTI felt raw, vulnerable, angry, and deeply, unsettlingly spiritual. The dancer listened to the album obsessively during rehearsals, and she noticed things, references to breaking free, to transformation, to sacrifice. The title itself, ANTI, suggested opposition against something. But what? The dancer asked Rihanna once during break, "What are you anti against?" Rihanna looked at her for a long moment, then said, "Everything that made me before this," and walked away. The tour itself was spectacular but strange. Rihanna performed with an intensity that felt desperate, like she was purging something. The dancer watched from backstage, saw how Rihanna would sometimes stop mid-song, close her eyes, sway like she was in a trance. The music would continue. The band covered, but Rihanna was somewhere else. And when she came back, her face looked different. Older, tired, relieved, like she'd just survived something. During the tour, Rihanna started changing the set list in unexpected ways. She'd drop her biggest hits, replace them with deep cuts, album tracks nobody expected, songs that were slower, darker, more introspective. Her team would panic. Fans paid to hear the hits. But Rihanna refused. "I'm not that person anymore," she'd say. "I can't keep pretending." The dancer realized this wasn't artistic evolution. This was shedding, like a snake losing its skin. Rihanna was systematically removing every piece of her public persona, preparing for something. The final show of the ANTI tour was in Abu Dhabi, December 2016. The dancer remembers it vividly. The energy backstage was raw, electric but heavy, like static before a storm. Rihanna was quiet, focused, and when she took the stage for the final time, something shifted. She performed flawlessly, but there was a finality to it. Not just last show of the tour finality, last show ever finality. And at the very end, after the final song, Rihanna stood center stage, looked out at the crowd, and whispered something the dancer saw but couldn't hear. Later, someone who'd been closer said Rihanna had said, "I'm free now." After that night, Rihanna disappeared. Not physically, she was still seen at events, fashion shows, parties, But musically, she vanished. No singles, no features, no announcements, just silence. Her label panicked. Fans demanded answers, but Rihanna gave none. And the dancer, who'd stayed in touch with some of the tour crew, started hearing stories. Stories about what Rihanna was doing during those silent years. And none of it involved music. The dancer learned that Rihanna had become obsessed with ancestry, with Barbadian spiritual practices, with African diaspora religions. She was studying, learning, unlearning. One crew member who visited Rihanna's home said the place had changed. Altars in multiple rooms, candles, herbs, books on Obeah, Vodou, Santeria. Rihanna wasn't just taking a break from music. She was undergoing a transformation. Spiritual, psychological, complete. The number 6 became significant. 6 years. From 2016 to 2022, the dancer researched numerology. In many spiritual traditions, 6 represents harmony, balance, completion. It's a number of cycles of Venus, the planet associated with love, beauty, and Rihanna's astrological sign. What if the 6 years weren't random? What if they were calculated? A specific period required to complete a working, a ritual, a transformation that couldn't be rushed. The dancer also learned about the concept of paying the cost. In certain spiritual practices, when you want to break a contract, leave a path, or transform your destiny, you have to give something up. Usually time, silence, withdrawal. You have to die to the old self before the new self can emerge. And Rihanna's 6-year silence looked exactly like that. A death, a gestation, a rebirth. During those silent years, Rihanna built an empire. Fenty Beauty, Savage X Fenty, business ventures that had nothing to do with music. The dancers saw this as strategic. Rihanna was proving she didn't need music anymore, didn't need to perform, didn't need to be Rihanna the pop star. She could be something else, someone else. And the financial independence gave her power. Power to say no, power to control her narrative, power to complete the ritual on her own terms. But there were signs that something darker was happening. Friends of Rihanna spoke in interviews about how she'd changed, become more private, more guarded. One interview from 2019 quoted a childhood friend saying, "She's not the same girl I grew up with. She's harder now, like she built a wall around herself. And sometimes I wonder if she's protecting us from something, or protecting something from us." The dancer read that quote over and over. Protecting something from us. What did that mean? The dancer started researching ANTI more deeply. The album cover. Rihanna as a child, wearing a crown, eyes covered, holding a balloon. The image was eerie, innocent but unsettling. And the crown. Crowns represent sovereignty, power, rulership. What if the album cover was a statement? I was crowned young. My eyes were covered. I couldn't see what was being done to me. But now I see. And I'm taking the crown back. Then there was the title track. Auntie. It's not a song. It's not on most versions of the album. It's a hidden track, a mantra. And the dancer found interpretations suggesting it was a banishment, a severing, a declaration of independence from whatever had controlled Rihanna before. If that's true, the 6-year silence makes sense. You don't just declare freedom and walk away. You have to enforce it, protect it, make sure what you severed can't reattach. In 2020, during the pandemic, Rihanna's silence became even more conspicuous. Every artist was releasing music, quarantine albums, home recordings, everyone except Rihanna. Fans joked about it, made memes. Rihanna really said no music during a global pandemic. But the dancer didn't think it was funny. The timing was too perfect. The world was in chaos. Everyone was vulnerable. And Rihanna stayed silent, protected, like she knew something, like she was waiting for the right moment. The dancer also noticed Rihanna's physical transformation. She'd always been beautiful, but during the silent years, she changed. Her face looked different, not from surgery, from peace, from power, from someone who'd won a battle nobody else could see. And when she became pregnant in 2021, the dancers saw it as the final piece. Pregnancy, creation, new life, the ultimate symbol of transformation and rebirth. Rihanna wasn't just building a business empire. She was building a family, a legacy, something that belonged entirely to her. The Super Bowl 2023 performance was the return. But it wasn't a comeback. It was a debut. Rihanna performed pregnant, standing on platforms suspended in the air, commanding the stage with a calm authority she'd never had before. The dancer watched from home, and she cried, because she understood. The 6 years were complete. The ritual was done, and the person on that stage wasn't the same Rihanna who left. This was someone new, someone who'd paid the price, done the work, and emerged sovereign. After the Super Bowl, Rihanna gave an interview. The journalist asked about new music. Rihanna smiled, that calm, knowing smile, and said, "Music will come when I'm ready. I don't owe anyone a timeline. I spent too many years on other people's timelines. I'm on my own time now." The dancer heard those words and knew. Rihanna wasn't refusing to make music out of spite or laziness. She was refusing to be controlled, and that refusal was the whole point. The dancers started connecting everything. The ANTI album, the 6-year silence, the business empire, the pregnancy, the Super Bowl return. It was all one continuous ritual, a working design to break Rihanna free from whatever machinery had controlled her career from the beginning. And that machinery wasn't just a record label. It was deeper. The industry, the image, the expectations, the identity that had been built around her since she was 17. Rihanna spent 6 years dismantling that identity and building a new one, on her terms. But the dancer also wondered about the cost. Because in spiritual work, there's always a cost. What did Rihanna give up during those 6 years? What did she sacrifice? The dancer thought about all the music that could have existed, all the performances, all the moments fans never got. Was that the sacrifice? Or was there something more personal? Something we'll never know? The dancer spoke with a spiritual practitioner familiar with African diaspora religions, told her the story, the timeline, the symbols, and the practitioner nodded knowingly. 6 years is a Venus cycle, she said. In some traditions, you work with Venus for love, beauty, power, sovereignty. But deep Venus work requires withdrawal. You have to go into the underworld, face your shadows, reclaim your power, and you can't do that while performing, while being seen. You have to disappear, and 6 years is the time it takes to complete the cycle, to be reborn. The dancer asked if it was dangerous. The practitioner smiled. All transformation is dangerous. You're killing an old self, and the old self doesn't want to die. It fights. It tempts you back. That's why most people can't complete it. They get scared. They compromise. They return to what's familiar. But if you can hold the silence, hold the boundary, stay in the underworld until the work is done, you emerge transformed, truly sovereign, and nothing can control you again. Rihanna held the silence for 6 full years, despite pressure, despite mockery, despite financial incentives. She held it, and the dancer believes that's why she won, why she's now one of the most powerful women in entertainment, not just because of her business ventures, but because she completed something most people can't. She broke free, actually, genuinely free, and freedom, real freedom, requires sacrifice. The dancer also thought about what this means for other artists. How many of them are trapped, performing identities that aren't theirs, singing songs they don't believe, living lives they didn't choose, and how many have tried to break free but couldn't hold the silence, couldn't face the backlash, couldn't survive the financial pressure. Rihanna did, and maybe that's why her story matters. Because it proves it's possible, but it also shows the cost. 6 years, total withdrawal, complete transformation. Most people can't pay that price. Most people won't. The dancers started tracking every public appearance Rihanna made during the silent years, and a pattern emerged. Rihanna only appeared at events that aligned with her transformation. Fashion shows where she was building her brand. Charity events connected to her foundation. Family gatherings in Barbados. But music events, award shows, industry parties, she was conspicuously absent. And when asked about music, her answers became increasingly cryptic. When the time is right. I'm not rushing. Music will happen when it needs to happen. Never a concrete answer. Never a timeline. Just vague reassurances that meant nothing and everything. The dancer also noticed Rihanna's physical location during those years. She spent significant time in Barbados, her homeland, the island where she grew up. And Barbados has deep spiritual traditions, Obeah practices that have been passed down for generations. Ancestral knowledge. The dancer learned that in Caribbean spiritual traditions, returning to your homeland isn't just sentimental. It's strategic. You go back to the source, to the land, to the ancestors, to recharge, to reconnect, to complete work that can only be done where your roots are. Rihanna wasn't just vacationing in Barbados. She was doing ancestral work. The dancer spoke with someone who'd grown up in Barbados, asked about the spiritual culture there, and the woman explained that Obeah isn't just superstition or folklore. It's a real practice, a system of spiritual technology developed by enslaved Africans to maintain power in a system designed to strip them of everything. And one of the core principles of Obeah is sovereignty, taking back your power, breaking chains, refusing to be controlled. The woman said, if Rihanna was studying Obeah, if she was working with practitioners there, then the 6 years silence makes perfect sense. You don't just read about this work, you do it. And it takes time, years, and you can't do it while performing for the world. You have to withdraw, go inward, do the work in private, then emerge transformed. The dancer also researched the business moves Rihanna made during the silence. Fenty Beauty launched in 2017, revolutionary for its inclusive shade range. But the dancer noticed something. The launch date, September 2017, exactly 1 year and 8 months after ANTI. And in numerology, 18 reduces to 9. 9 is the number of completion. Endings. Finality. What if the timing wasn't random? What if Rihanna launched Fenty Beauty at a specific point in the ritual? To mark a milestone. To anchor her transformation in the material world. And Fenty Beauty wasn't just successful. It was disruptive. It changed the entire beauty industry. Forced other brands to expand their shade ranges. Made inclusivity the standard instead of the exception. The dancers saw this as more than business savvy. It was power redistribution. Rihanna using her platform to shift an entire industry. And that's a form of magic too. Not the supernatural kind. The kind where you change reality through will and action. And that's what sovereignty looks like. Not just personal freedom, but the power to change systems. Savage X Fenty followed in 2018. Another industry disruption. Lingerie that celebrated all body types, all skin tones, all expressions of femininity and masculinity. The shows were spectacles, inclusive, joyful, radical, and again, the dancers saw the pattern. Rihanna wasn't just building businesses. She was building a new paradigm, a new way of seeing beauty, bodies, power, and every launch felt like a spell, a working design to shift collective consciousness. The dancer also thought about the timing of Rihanna's pregnancy. She announced it in 2022, 6 years after ANTI, 6 years into the silence. And pregnancy is the ultimate creative act, the ultimate transformation. Your body becomes a vessel, You create life. You become a mother, an ancestor in the making. And in spiritual traditions, motherhood is sacred, powerful, transformative. The dancer wondered if the pregnancy was part of the plan. The final piece of the 6-year working. Creation, new life, the ultimate symbol of rebirth. And then came the Super Bowl, February 2023, exactly 7 years after ANTI. 7 is the number of completion in many spiritual systems. The 7th day, the 7th chakra, perfection, wholeness. And Rihanna performed pregnant, showing a belly, celebrating a body, commanding the biggest stage in American entertainment. The dancer watched that performance with tears streaming down her face, because it was everything. The culmination, the proof, the announcement. Rihanna standing above the world, literally suspended in the air, sovereign, powerful, free, and creating life. The dancer noticed something else about the Super Bowl performance. Rihanna's set list. She performed her hits, but she didn't perform them the same way. There was a detachment, a knowing, like she was acknowledging her past but not trapped by it. She sang "We Found Love," but she wasn't the girl who recorded that song. She was someone else, someone who'd found love in a different way, in herself, in her children, in her sovereignty. And that performance wasn't nostalgia. It was closure. After the Super Bowl, the questions about new music intensified. Everyone assumed Rihanna's return meant an album was coming. But months passed, then a year, and still nothing. Some fans got angry, felt teased, betrayed. But the dancer understood. Rihanna had proven a point. She could return, command attention, dominate the conversation, and still not give the industry what it wanted. Because she didn't owe anyone anything. Not music, not performances, not explanations. And that refusal was the whole point. The dancer also learned about something called a spiritual contract. In some traditions, before you're born, you make agreements. With ancestors, with spirits, with destiny. You agree to certain paths, certain lessons, certain missions. And Rihanna's early career felt like that. Like she was fulfilling a contract, becoming a star, making hits, being iconic. But contracts can be renegotiated, especially if you fulfilled your end. And ANTI felt like Rihanna saying, I did what I agreed to. Now I'm doing something else, on my terms. The dancer spoke with a music industry lawyer who'd worked with other major artists, asked about contracts, control, power dynamics, and the lawyer said something chilling. Most artists never own themselves. The label owns their masters, their image, their name. They are products, commodities, and even when they are successful, they are trapped. Because the system is designed that way. But every once in a while, an artist figures it out, gets smart, gets powerful enough to break free. And when that happens, the industry tries to punish them, blacklist them, freeze them out. But if the artist is strong enough, if they have resources, they can survive and emerge more powerful than before. Sounds like that's what Rihanna did. The dancer thought about that, about how the industry must have pressured Rihanna during the silent years. Threatened, cajoled, offered money, demanded product. But Rihanna held firm, didn't break, didn't compromise. And that kind of strength is rare. Almost superhuman, unless you have spiritual backing, unless you're not doing it alone, unless ancestors and spirits and your own deep power are supporting you. The dancer also noticed how other artists reacted to Rihanna's silence. Some mocked it, made jokes, but others seemed to respect it, almost envy it, like they wish they could do the same. Walk away, build something else, return on their terms, but they couldn't. Didn't have the strength, the resources, the spiritual fortitude. And the dancer wondered how many artists are trapped right now, wanting to break free, but unable to withstand the pressure. She thought about Lauryn Hill, who also disappeared, but whose silence felt different. Painful, forced, like she tried to break free but got broken in the process. Or Amy Winehouse, who wanted to stop, but couldn't, and died performing. Or Whitney Houston, who became a cautionary tale. The dancer realized Rihanna's story could have gone any of those ways. She could have broken, could have been destroyed, but she wasn't. She survived, thrived, and that's what makes her story important. It's proof that escape is possible, but it also shows the cost. The dancer is speaking now because she wants people to understand what they witnessed. From 2016 to 2023, the world watched Rihanna disappear and return, but they didn't understand what they were watching. They thought it was a hiatus, a break, laziness, drama, but it was none of those things. It was a ritual, a carefully executed working designed to reclaim sovereignty. And it worked. Rihanna is free now, truly free. You can see it in her eyes, hear it in her voice, feel it in her presence. She's not performing anymore. She's just being. And that's the most radical thing a pop star can do. The dancer wants people to know that Rihanna's silence was a gift, not just to herself, but to every artist watching, every person trapped in a system they didn't create. Rihanna showed that you can say no, you can walk away, you can build something new, and you can return powerful. But she also showed the cost. 6 years, total withdrawal, complete transformation. Most people can't pay that price. Most people won't. But for those who can, who will, Rihanna's story is a blueprint, a map, a proof of concept. But the dancer also warns. This kind of work isn't for everyone. It requires total commitment, total sacrifice, and not everyone survives it. Some people go into the silence and never come back, get lost in the transformation, lose themselves completely. Rihanna made it through, but she's exceptional, and she had resources, support systems, spiritual guidance. Most people don't. So the dancer doesn't recommend copying what Rihanna did, but she does recommend understanding it, respecting it, and recognizing that sometimes silence is an absence. It's the most powerful statement an artist can make. The dancer hasn't worked with Rihanna since that final show in Abu Dhabi, but she follows her from a distance, watches her moves, and she sees someone who won, who beat the game, who refused to play by rules that weren't hers. And whether you believe in rituals or not, whether you think the 6 years were spiritual or just strategic, the result is undeniable. Rihanna walked away from music at the height of her career, built an empire without it, and returned only when she wanted to, on her terms, with her power intact. That's not luck. That's not accident. That's mastery. And it took 6 years of silence to achieve. The dancer's final thought is this: watch what Rihanna does next. Because the 6-year working is complete. The ritual is done. But Rihanna is still here, still creating, still building. And whatever comes next will be on her terms. Completely, utterly, without compromise. Because she paid the price, did the work, and emerged sovereign. And sovereignty, once claimed, is forever. The industry can't take it back. The public can't demand it. And Rihanna will never give it away again. She learned the lesson, completed the initiation, and now she's operating on a different level. A level most people will never reach. A level where you're not just successful, you're free. Actually, genuinely, spiritually free. And that's what the 6-year silence was really about. Not music, not business, freedom. And Rihanna found it.